Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Today I am reviewing two chronograph watches from a very interesting new company called Undone. Now, before I get into this, I will of course do my wristwatch check, and I'm wearing. Oh God, look at the anti-reflective coating on that domed sapphire, double domed sapphire crystal. Yes, I'm wearing my custom modded SKX. Actually, it's quite interesting that I chose to wear this today. This is actually modified, but costing around about 3 times as much. Three times as much as the modification on the chronographs we're talking about. And by the way, guys, this is my SKX 0013, the Panther Cub. But anyway, we're not talking about my beloved SKX today. We are talking about these two fantastic chronographs. A little bit of background, just to give some context to the significance of this brand. Undone was started by a chap called Michael Young, also known as, or AKA, the Rolex Bracelet Magician. He's quite a legendary collector, based in Hong Kong. He's a highly regarded craftsman. In fact, he's been featured in various publications. He actually repairs a lot of high-end brands, and he started the classic watch repair business in Hong Kong, and for over 10 years of experience he eventually became an authorized service center for many big important brands, including Omega, Audemars Piguet, Beauvais, Hublot, the Swatch Group, and so on. I mean, the list goes on and on. So, as I say, he's highly respected for his craftsmanship, and those brands acknowledging him as well really does speak for itself. A remarkable achievement. So then, a couple of years ago, he started Undone. He wanted to take his expertise and his passion of watch collecting into providing something a little bit more affordable. It was, I'm pretty sure it was a Kickstarter brand originally. First, they came out with a diver that was customizable, using quite an innovative online customizational store, I guess you could say. Then later on, they brought out the urban chronograph, which is what we are taking a look at today. So this is my urban chronograph, and as you can see, it's got TGV on the dial. I'll put up a shot now of the actual process, because I think it's really quite clever, very easy to use. So you go to their website, you can select the dial out of a whole variety of dials, and the dials, I've got to say, you can tell it's been put together by a true enthusiast or connoisseur, because the designs, you've got a little bit of Speedy-esque influence in there. You've got some that are very reminiscent to the Hoyers, some that are very modern and Bauhaus, and others that are, play on the whole Panda, maybe a little bit Daytona, you could even say. So there's really a fantastic array of dials to choose from. Then you can select the hands, all different colors, and then the strap and the actual case. But above that, then you add an extra layer of, at slightly extra cost, of being able to custom print on the dial and on the case back. The one I went for was glass printing, which you can upload an image, which I think is just fantastic. You can select fonts, or perhaps you want an inscription etched, and you can have, a special message, or perhaps, even if this is intended as a gift, I think it's a pretty nifty idea that you can have a dedication etched on the back. Very, very cool indeed. Now, of course, you don't have to go in for all the customization, but I think it's vital to talk about how unique and integral it is to the brand, this procedure. Very easy, and I have to admit that I did this several times, purely out of fun, really, so, which, maybe I shouldn't admit that, but yeah, a little bit nerdy, but it was really fun. And then finally, with the case, I decided on gold plating, which is, not something I typically do. And this was the result. So I went in for this very kind of 1930s or early 40s style dial with the two sub-dials. It's very reminiscent of actually some of the late 1930s, early 1940s Amigas. If you remember, I've talked about that great length, my infatuation with the 33.3 caliber Amigas, especially also done by Tissot. This also has a striking resemblance to the Galet Multichron, but of course far more affordable. Now, if you don't want to go in for the customization, they also have a set kind of, you know, a whole plethora of pre-designed options, and this is one of them. This I actually borrowed in from my good friend Mark at Long Island Watches. He does stock what is called the Mystique collection. I'm not sure if he stocks the classic Killy and some of the others, but he does stock this. I had to borrow it because, I mean, just look at that dial. It's absolutely exquisite. The way it plays with the light, that beautiful hue of well, there's like several blues in there, but that sunburst effect. So this is the Mystique from the Mystique collection. This is actually called the Mercury, but we'll come back to this because I think this is a really interesting watch to talk about. Let's get the basic specifications out of the way first. So the diameter is 40 millimeters. We got a thickness of 13 millimeters. Lug to lug is a smidgen under 47.5, and then the lug width is 20 millimeters. So a really perfect size. I mean, you know, it's a size that, okay, it's a lot more modern. If I bring in one of my vintage chronographs, you can see there, this is a little 35 millimeter piece. Very similar aesthetic. I am slightly obsessed with the telemeter markings. It's a complication quintessentially 1930s and 1940s. I just love the way it looks. You know, I mean, nobody needs to time or figure out how far away an artillery position is anymore. That's probably why they were so favorable back in the day. But anyway, so the hands I went for these leaf style hands, gold for the hour and minutes, and then a blued second hand. Because the leaf style hands are very slightly faceted, they do play with the light nicely, so I thought it works, in my opinion, a bit better with the gold tone, and also to match the case. So the case is 316L stainless steel, and we get a really nice kind of contrast of brushed in a downwards direction on the sides, and then that double step of the bezel, which is very like the base of a Doric column, typical of this era, very deco-ish as well. Straight angular lugs that angle downwards, and then we have the two pushers and even a signed crown, which is done very, very nicely. Beautiful, huge, domed. This is a hardened mineral crystal, so you get that lovely distortion effect as you angle it. Pardon for the use of a completely made up word, but very vintagey feeling. We get a flat onion for the crown. No crown guards, but again, you know, I think this is in keeping with the aesthetic style of chronographs of that era. Most of the dial designs are slightly later inspired, more 60s, 50s, like you saw earlier. Then we have a screw-in case back with the basic information. So it's water resistant to 30 meters. I decided to go with the glass printing. So this is actually also mineral that has been printed on, just because I love the black, you know, and the play on white. And I wanted to have the line there. It's beautifully done, really nicely done. Quite chuffed with that. Now they do come on a strap that you decide, you know, which you specify. I went for this really nice kind of concrete grey distress strap. These are also handmade, genuine leather. Really nice feel to it. Very kind of supple leather, and of course with a little bit of stitching there. Quite reminiscent actually of the Collarabs, so which is a good thing. They also do taper nicely, but the real best feature about these straps has got to be the little quick release system. It's like a bolt action on a rifle. Even with gloves on, it's easy to take off, as you see there. I mean, it just makes switching out the straps an absolute doddle. You haven't got the kerfuffle of dealing with, and there it is, boom, back in there. You haven't got the kerfuffle of dealing with, you know, a spring bar tool or anything like that. So the dial unequivocally is my favorite feature. Just look how it distorts that huge domed, sorry, I've already talked about it, but anyway. So you can specify where you want to have your signature, I guess, or your customization. I just had TGV, and you can select the font. I matched the font to those stunning Art Deco numerals. Look at the curvature on that 2 and the way the 8 is done. I mean, this is telltale signs that it's been designed by somebody that really knows their vintage watches. So we have a 60-minute subdial at the 12 o'clock for the main chronograph, and then your seconds for the time at the 6. Lovely symmetry. The telemeter scale in red with a tachymeter scale on the outside in blue. The dial is a cream white, and I gotta say, look at the bluing of the hands. I know it's painted, it's not actually blued hands, but it's done very, very well. I've seen some shoddily painted hands in my time, so it does give the that luster of a blued hand very nicely. I love how they signed Undone at the bottom, kind of keeping it clean. Some of the dial designs do have the date, so if you want the date complication, very easy to add. So let's discuss the movement a little bit, because this is also quite interesting. Inside we have the VK61A. The VK series is mecha quartz movements that are made by Seiko. And what is mecha quartz? Well, they actually do have mechanical components inside of it. It's a combination of your typical quartz, but then a mechanical module added on top for the actual sweeping of the seconds. If I engage the chronograph, you can see there, it sweeps at 1/5 of a second. So it gives it a little bit of a, it's not butter smooth, but it gives you some of that feeling of a mechanical watch, which is great because there is a little bit of soul to it. Now this movement is incredibly accurate. It's about plus 20 seconds per month. The power reserve is 3 years. It's also worthy to point out that it is hackable. It also has a very healthy anti-magnetic resistance of 1,600 amperes per meter. Now if you do have the date complication added, it also has quick set, so very, very easy to operate and use, extremely robust, very affordable. I mean, there's no cost of maintenance here. The battery, even with the chronograph running for a few hours a day, the battery will last up to 3 years. Now, another fantastic feature that this chronograph has is that it's a flyback. You can stop start with the top pusher, or you can just reset it without having to stop start. So really, really nice indeed. I mean, you're getting all the benefits of, modern technology without the risk. This thing here, I'm going to have one of the hammers changed. And to source the parts, I'm looking at possibly a $400 service. Even though it actually costs around about the same, because there's tons of vintage chronographs. The cost of fixing this to run it, make it run as it should and repair the movement is just, well, I've done a whole video about it, so have a look back. For me, I don't mind because I love this watch and I want to see it restored, but I'm going to have to fork out quite a lot of money. You don't have any of the headaches of that with a modern piece like this. So I guess the question is, how does it wear? Let's pop it on the wrist and find out.
Several moments later.
On my very skinny 6 1/4 inch wrist, it actually wears incredibly well. The lugs do jut out quite a bit, so if you've got the larger wrist, you're in luck. But if you're also smaller wristed, or more modestly wristed, I should say, it's absolutely no problem at all. I have to say, the size is the only thing that kind of gives it away as it being modern. Very seldom were chronographs ever this big from the era that this is inspired by. The finishing is magnificent. I mean, I've seen some really shoddy gold plating in my time from watches costing even more than this. So it does have a fantastic presence. A really nice kind of tone to the gold as well. It's not too gold. It's passable as being a solid gold watch, which at the end of the day is what it's supposed to do. The buckle is also gold tone, although it's brushed, which I feel doesn't really go, but we'll discuss that in just a moment. It's about 60 grams. So very light and comfortable indeed. So anyway, let's summarize the watch. So I've got to say, I'm really quite impressed. It's by no means perfect. I think it's excellent value. The fact that every watch is made to order, hand assembled in Hong Kong, for around about $300 and even under if you don't go for the full works, is astonishingly good value for money. I mean, it really is. Bespoke watchmaking, let's be honest, it's like anything. It's like suits, it's like Savile Row, it's something attributed usually to high-end, super luxury, very expensive products. To get it in a watch of this price, I think is fantastic. And the fact that you're able to add a personal touch, it just adds to the whole unique charm and fun and enjoyment of the piece. You also don't have any of the risk of, you know, like my little Britix here, which really has been an eye-opener into the horrors of buying vintage chronographs. I mean, well, I exaggerate, but you know, I don't mind because I'm lovingly restoring this piece. But yeah, you don't have that headache. You have the performance. You don't really need to think about it being quartz. The cost of ownership is nothing you have to be concerned with. The maintenance costs, etc. Also, you have the added benefit of it being very robust in comparison to vintage pieces in particular. Which makes it more fun, I have to say. You know, you just don't worry about it. I can wear the hell out of this and really not worry about it. I mean, the mineral crystal is perhaps the only concern, but to be honest, I think it works even better with the mineral crystal. It helps that feeling of authenticity. A big positive definitely for this watch has got to be that you can tell it's been designed by enthusiasts. It's been designed by a collector, somebody that really knows watches. It's not just some anonymous Kickstarter kind of fashion watch or anything like that. You can undoubtedly tell this comes from somebody that really loves watches. And lastly, I think it has to be addressed. I think the website is absolutely genius. It's easy to use. You get quite a fun experience choosing and adding that personal touch. I personally have never experienced anything like this before, so it's very refreshing. I'm extremely excited to see what Undone do next. So let's discuss the negatives. Well, if we look close up, the printing on the dial there leaves a little bit to be desired. It's not noticeable on the wrist. I mean, look, I'm doing really close-up macro shots. It's not as crisp as the printing on the rest of the dial, which I got to say is extremely impressive for a watch of this price range. Just look at the scales and how precise they are. It's magnificently done. Nothing is out of place, which is extraordinary at this price point. I only wish the customizable text was a little bit better done. My only other negative is I would love to see a slightly smaller size, maybe a 38, even a 36. My little vintage Britix here is, I think this is a 35. Yeah, it's going to be too small for most people. I mean, look, this 40mm size is a crowd pleaser for, I'm guessing, but 75% of the audience, it's absolutely fine. But there are, you know, a good amount of us that have the smaller wrist. My last kind of negative, and again, I'm finding it very difficult to find anything to critique here, is I'm not a fan of this style of buckle. I think something a little bit thinner. This is too modern, in my opinion, for the style of the actual head of the watch. Again, you know, I'm struggling to find anything negative here. I would also like it a smidgen thinner. You know, it being quartz, let's make the most of that quartz. Anyway, before I go, I just want to bring up the Mercury here. I have to admit, I'm extremely tempted to buying this one as well. Not that I need it, I just find this absolutely stunning. And I think it's important to showcase also some of their pre-designed options like this. I've never seen a blue like it. I also love the way they've added smaller concentric circles on the inner part of the subdials. Absolutely gorgeous. It has a kind of sapphire blue effect that is mesmerizing as it fades into black. And I also got to say the strap this one comes on is even nicer. This is really nice and supple. I mean, you kind of want to eat it. It's and as you can see, just a smooth case back there. You can see the reflection there of the camera. But yeah, no engraving, nothing. I'm almost tempted to have this engraved and buy a second one. It's almost a little bit like the Max Bill, Junghans Max Bills, but dare I say it, even more alluring with that blue. I mean, amazing. Applied markers and a double applied marker at the 12, exquisite. I mean, really, it's a beauty to behold, this piece. The mirror finish has a dazzling, absolutely dazzling effect, and I love that contrast with the brushing that continues on the lugs. This watch is probably my favorite of the two, and it's ridiculous because because this is the one I ordered, but you know, God, am I gonna have to buy this one as well? But you guys, you can see why I'm so besotted with this incredibly angelic, just, it's splendid. I mean, really is superb. Amazing. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rabbiting on and drooling over over this. I have to send this back to Mark. Shout out to Mark at Long Island Watches for lending this in, and I'm certainly going to be enjoying my little purchase from Undone. Very fun indeed. Smashing stuff. Very exciting to see where they go next. I gotta say, it definitely gets the pure class, the stamp of approval. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know your thoughts, queries, comments, opinions, all the rest of it down below. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful. And as usual, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.